more than 150 times in the Bible, in the New Testament, where it talks about God being our Heavenly Father. This is great for those who've had a close relationship with their human father, but it rekindles all sorts of painful memories for those who haven't. Some of us had a father who was neglectful or not involved in our lives. Others had a father who was physically or verbally abusive. A bad father can make a child's life hell on earth with their cruel, demanding, selfish, and uncaring behaviors. More than a few young adults have vowed, "I will never treat my children the way my father treated me." On top of this, some people develop misconceptions about God that keep them from having a good relationship with Him. For example, some people feel that God is unreasonable. They see Him like a killjoy who puts 1,000 rules and restrictions in their lives that they cannot live up to. Others feel that God is unreliable. One faulty characteristic of human reasoning is that when someone hurts us, we blame that person, but we also blame God. Some of us have never gotten close to God because we've never dealt with the resentment we feel towards Him for allowing bad things to happen to us. One of God's greatest gifts to human race is the freedom to choose. God gives everyone a measure of free will. The Lord could have kept people from hurting us by taking away their free will, but He didn't. And because He gives everyone the freedom to choose, people sometimes make wrong choices that hurt us, that can affect us. God could stop this by taking away those people's freedom to choose, but in order to be fair, God will also have to take away our free will, and we wouldn't like that. It's easy to focus on how others have hurt us, but we rarely stop and think about how many people we've hurt by being selfish and inconsiderate. If everyone followed God's laws, the world would be a happy place indeed. The real problem is man's sinfulness, not God's giving us too much freedom. Another misconception is to think that God is unconcerned. With over 6 billion people to look after and a whole universe to run, we often think that God is too busy to bother with puny little me. Consequently, if you feel that God isn't concerned about your job, your family, problems, etc., then you will have no interest in knowing Him better. A fourth misconception is to think that it is impossible to please God. Some people feel that no matter how hard they try, nothing they do is good enough for God. This simply is not true. Of course, if you grew up with perfectionist type parents who were hard to please, you naturally would think that God is hard to please. If you grew up with an uncaring human father, you automatically will tend to think that God is uncaring. Yet, in all fairness, it's a mistake to take our parents' weakness and assume God is in the way. The Bible tells us that God is a caring Father. He is kind, compassionate, and loving, and He sincerely cares about you. He loves you more than you will ever know. It's just that the human mind isn't big enough to understand God's perfect, unselfish love. Now, when we read, when you read Mark 4, 35 through 39, the situation must have been pretty grim to frightened, experienced fishermen like Peter, Andrew, James, and John. In near panic, they woke Jesus up and said, "Lord, you don't care that we're about to drown?" This is one of the most profound questions ever asked. Does God care about what happens to me? Does He really care about my hurts, my problems, my hopes, and my worries? Most assuredly, the answer is yes. It is God's nature to be kind, loving, and compassionate. Some parents explain their children's wild behavior by saying, "Boys will be boys," In similar fashion, we should never forget that God will be God, in His nature to be concerned about His creation. Many times in the Old Testament, the Lord let foreigners attack Israel after its people sinned repeatedly. After countless warnings, the Lord finally let King Nebuchadnezzar capture the Israelites and carry them off into Babylon. In their captivity, the people cried out, "The Lord has turned away and forgotten us." To which God replied, "Could a mother forget her little child who nurses at her breast? Could she fail to love the infant who came from her own body? Yet even if that happens, I will never forget you. I have tattooed your name upon my palm, and a picture of your city walls is always before me. You are always in my thoughts." And then that was in Isaiah 49, 14 through 16. Amen. Right, so have you ever felt that God is unreasonable, unreliable, unconcerned, or extremely hard to please? Or have you ever blamed God for allowing pain and hardship in your life?
It's not God, it's us.